You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. We cover news and events from the week that was in Lucha, talking Mexico-based promotions and top independents, along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others from the network are also available on all major podcast streaming platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbase Speaker, and more. My name is Miranda Morales, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, and let me bring in the rest of the team. Introducing first, he is the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Miranda?
I am doing well. So good to be with you, as well as the third member of this trio. And that's who?
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 Who? It's the one and only Brendan Barr.
That's who.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. I guess I'll do it. I'll drop this on the, I'm glad that we're back.
Yes.
We did, life got in the way. We did promise some big things a couple of weeks ago. Don't worry, we're getting to all of that stuff too. But we will be back to this weekly format.
Yes, it did happen where we all had life events happen. It's getting busy. Lucha Central Weekly Podcast was not so weekly over the past few weeks, so no, you didn't miss an episode. But as Brendan said, we are back to the format. We are excited. We got some things to catch up on. So
A lot of things.
Hold on tight, because there's been some things happening, big things happening. So stay tuned, because we're going to be covering, I mean, literally the landscape of wrestling has changed in just the few weeks that we've been out.
Yeah, we picked, from that perspective, we picked the wrong weeks for life to happen.
Yes.
Good God.
But, you know, life goes on. We are going to catch you all up on what's been happening in the world of Lucha Libre. So make sure you hold on tight, because we got quite a show for you. And we back, baby, and better than ever. So thank you so much for listening to this week's show. Thank you for being there and being part of this crazy journey with us. As we get closer and closer to episode 100, too. That's a big milestone for us. And so appreciative of all of you who have been part of that journey, whether you've listened to one episode or all of them. A big thank you for joining us on this week's episode and the future ones to come. So we're going to get back to it. You got to go with news of the week with Brendan.
Hey. So I'm going to start with a fun one. There was a viral clip a little bit ago, from an IWRG show where a woman poured a drink in the upper level, dumped a drink out on Lady Maravilla, who then proceeded to throw something back at her and then cut a promo, which is, to those of you who are familiar with indie shows, this is nothing new, but somehow this clip caught on, and, so I'm sure many of you have seen it, but I just thought it was a fun little thing, cause, I don't normally see the luchadors do this, like stop and just call somebody out for being a bad person in the middle of a show. And there's a lot of people that get involved in lucha shows. Like, we get really wrapped up in the show at Lucha. That's all I'm saying. If you've ever seen the crazy guys in the front rows at any lucha show, that they're all like that, all of them. some news on Lucha going to Japan. We will be talking a bit about more of that later, but this is about Noah and Hijo del Dr. Wagner and Tejano Jr. said that they're going to be in Japan with Noah for about 3 months. So expect a big tour, and there are other Lucha names that are signed on for that. So we're talking about Super Crazy, Dragon Bane, Extreme Tiger, I believe are all mentioned on this. That's what I have in my notes currently. Which is interesting also. I'd want to thank Lucha Blog for pointing this out. That means Extreme Tiger will not be able to be at Expo Lucha as he was originally billed, but Expo Lucha has announced that Astrolux will be there as a fill-in. So, good luck to Extreme Tiger in Japan. That sounds like fun. And those of us going to Philly get to see Astrolux now. So I feel like that's kind of a big deal too. In kind of craziness, we had talked about in previous weeks about a San Francisco show that was going to feature Nick Wayne versus Bandito, and I was very excited about this, and that turned into a big news story because a bunch of wrestlers didn't make that show. There were some failed plane connections, some other things. Bandito and Gringo Loco were among the ones that were missing. The GCW show did put in some adequate replacements. Nick Wayne wrestled Effie in the opening match, which, not Lucha, but I'm sure GCW fans were just as excited to see that. And they have announced the Nick Wayne Bandito rematch is going to be at their show in Los Angeles on 5/21. So if you, like me, really wanted to see that, you still have a chance to catch that match live because it didn't happen yet. This is a take two. And then what's probably going to be Dusty's favorite news story of the week, Ultimo Dragon announced that he is bringing the Toremon Mexico promotion back. What's interesting about this is originally that was affiliated with CMLL, and they did shows in Arena Mexico, sometimes before CMLL shows, sometimes as their own thing. But as those of you who have been paying attention will notice, Ultimo Dragon is on a AAA show this year. So he's probably not going to be doing any shows out of Arena Mexico anytime soon. So
CMLL are really losing the grip that they had on the Lucha Libre scene. We'll touch on it later in the AEW segment slightly. I'll make sure to bring up this one point regarding it. But AAA is generally seen as the good money bet for companies and sponsors, things like that right now. CMLL's almost passe in a way.
Well, and their branding is really off in another respect too. In my personal life, I ran into a gentleman who moved up here from Mexico City. And when I mentioned that I did a Lucha podcast, he started talking to me very excitedly about Lucha Libre. But he referred to AAA as the premier promotion. Mm-hmm. And he thought that CMLL was the young up and coming promotion instead.
Wow. So that's
unique perspective. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Well, I mean, but that just shows you how the casuals really view it. Like AAA is on TV everywhere. They're the ones that do touring. They're the ones that even though CMLL has lottery tickets and has the world famous arena.
But it's all centered around Mexico City. It's not
exactly
countrywide. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you're in other parts of the country, you probably only know AAA and don't really know too much about CMLL. So that's a valid point. And I just thought it was interesting that you brought that up in the same week that I talked with this guy about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool.
So yeah, it sounds like Ultimo Dragon's going to be bringing Noah wrestlers to Mexico. The brand rebranded is now Toromon Casa. It's going to be in Mexico. He hasn't given a location or anything yet, but as we were just talking about, it's clearly not going to be in Arena Mexico. So we'll keep our ears open for that. So that's my week in news. We do have quite a bit of indie roundup to try and cover. There are a couple of things that I'm going to do later. So we're going to try and get as much of the Dallas stuff done as we can. I was unable to watch so I'm going to start here. The GCW versus the World event happened. I'm not going to go into a lot of results on this here because I think this is probably one of the single best products that we got. So if you haven't seen it, you need to go on Fight TV or I believe they'll have it up on IWTV eventually, and watch it. All the feedback I've heard from people that were there live or people who watched it online as it was happening was that it was amazing, and this is the kind of some really good exposure for Lucha Libre. But as a result of that, I'm going to put off doing results on that show a little longer so that maybe more people will go and watch it, and then we can talk about it maybe a week or two down the line. In the same respect, Lucha Maniacs had a show that weekend, which was very sparsely attended. It was because it was on Saturday, so it was up against night one of WrestleMania. It is currently not available in the easiest format, so I'm waiting to watch it until it comes up on Mas Lucha, but I will be also covering the Lucha Maniac show in the future because it was kind of a legendary lineup, so I do want to cover that. Also from Dallas that weekend, we did have USA versus the World, which I did watch, so we will talk about that. That is, that we had a couple of Lucha featured matches in there. The whole event started with a Four Corners match for Warrior Wrestling's Lucha Libre Championship, featuring Golden Dragon, La Hydra, Mr. Iguana, and Sam Adonis. This is, first off, Sam Adonis was not nearly as, heelish and rudo as he is in AAA in this. He was very athletic and doing a lot of his more technical moves, although he still was very much the rudo and bad guy in this, the man that I love to hate.
Yeah.
And Mr. Iguana was making his best attempt to steal the show. Yeska made her presence known early in the match and was seen a lot. We did see her attempt to kiss La Hydra, which I think would have probably set the internet on fire. So just saying, keep your eyes open. That may happen. Sam Adonis did retain his championship in this. He did some heelish tactics and wound up getting the pinfall. I'm not going to give away the ending too much. It was a spectacular, high-flying event. It's Four Corners but with very much a strong emphasis on lucha rules. So I thought this was a really good opener and a great exposure for Lucha Libre. And then later we had a trios match with Gringo Loco, Caleb with a K, Connolly, and Flip Gordon versus Aries, Arrowboy, and Aramis. This was a classic trios match. Basically, you had Flip Gordon, who they mentioned on commentary is one of the few Americans who has worked in both CMLL and AAA. Sam Adonis obviously being another one that we could easily mention just on this show alone. But that shows his lucha education. And of course, Gringo Loco is very well lucha educated. So it was very classic lucha trios match. If you are into that West Coast style, as we like to call it on the show, with lots of high flying, lots of topes, lots of rope walking, this was the match for you. And it had a classic triple finish with Aries, Arrowboy, and Aramis all getting either a pinfall or submission. on the other team all at the same time. So the referee didn't even have to worry about who the legal man was. And then in near the end of the card, I wanted to say it's the main event, but it was not quite the main event. Bandito and Extreme Tiger were in a tag team against Anthony Henry and JD Drake. And this was very different than the other two matches. There was a lot more storyline about Clash of Styles. JD Drake spent the first half of the match basically no selling any lucha stuff and saying, I'm not going to do that lucha shit. And then, he busted out some Hurricane Ranas and some rope walking anyway. So, you got a big payoff, but it had a slower build up and a more fun pace. And, Bandito and Extreme Tiger did win out on that one. Also this week, as I mentioned off air, and I did some text for it, Lucha Libre Volcanica up here in Seattle returned. They were, at the Seattle Taco Festival, which was basically a neighborhood wanted to have an excuse to get a bunch of taco trucks together, and so we had Lucha Libre, tacos, and margaritas.
Sounds like my kind of party.
Right?
Yeah.
There was nothing wrong with this. Everybody was super excited to be out and had a good time. There was all kinds of matches on there. Because I was so excited to be there, I didn't take very good notes. But we did have. It's
that way sometimes.
Yeah.
If you're in the moment, it's hard to take notes.
Exactly. And so we had a match with, Donica. She's cut off all the rest of it and she's just going by Donica. Against Leo Negro. They went a lot more hardcore in that. Skewers were brought out, chairs were done, they brawled in the crowd. Really lit the crowd on fire. Leo Negro cheated to retain the championship, but I don't think anybody cared at that point because they were so amped up by the amazing match that was put on. And in the main event, Evan Extreme, who some people will in deep cuts of lucha circles will recognize from many appearances in Arena Naucalpan, returned to the Seattle area as part of a tag team. He didn't win, but it was a wonderful high-flying main event, and I'm super happy to have seen Lucha Libre Volcanica back at it. So congratulations, guys. They said that the announcement from the non-Lucha Libre people said that they were going to have more taco truck festivals in the future, which implies more Lucha Libre in the park. So next time I will give better results for you. But I'm just super excited they're back and doing shows. But speaking of super excited and doing shows, Miranda, you got to go to a show that I really wanted to be at. So do you want to talk about that to the people?
Yes, I was very excited and honored to be the ring announcer for Pro Wrestling Revolution's San Francisco show that occurred on Saturday, April 9th. This was Pro Wrestling Revolution's return to the San Francisco area. They've been primarily in San Jose since they came back last. And this was such an awesome show, both the crowd, and the actual matches. We started off with a, big match, for the Pro Wrestling Revolution Openweight Championship. Your champion, Papo Esco, defended against Ultimo Panda. Ultimo Panda, as comical as he was, a big favorite going into this match, as he had quite an undefeated streak going in. But Papo Esco, ain't no man to fuck with, in the simplest words of this, and he won by pinfall, successfully retaining the Openweight Championship. After that, we did have a women's tag team match. The team of Christina Von Eerie and Mighty Myra faced off against Charisma and Nicole Savoy. Christina Von Eerie and Charisma have had some beef previously, and that carried on into this match. Christina Von Eerie, the aggressor, really all throughout this match, and charisma, with great positive energy, but still fairly young compared to the experience of Christina. But that was balanced out by the queen of suplexes herself, Nicole Savoy, as also a Northern Californian herself, really well received. But the team of, trying to remember through my notes, trying to remember exactly who won in this. Believe it was the team of Charisma and Nicole Savoy who won. I'll have to double check on my notes of that. But this in and of itself was again, very entertaining match. And it really highlighted, again, the aggression of Christina Von Eerie, as well as really this up-and-coming start with Charisma, as well as really the beautiful suplexes of Nicole Savoy. Up next, we had men's tag team match. The team of Colt Stevens, who's one half of the Pro Wrestling Revolution Tag Team Champions, teamed up with Vinny Massaro to take on El Primo Genio and Zuka. This one, of course, anytime you see Colt Stevens and anyone from the Border Patrol, you will always find their Rudo ref, Sparky Ballard, in a play.
Yeah, that's usually the story in their matches.
Yes. And so, if you do not know a Sparky Ballard, it is the referee of choice for the Border Patrol. And that ended up working in the favor of Colt Stevens and Vinny Massaro, who did win this match. After that, we had a triple threat match for the Pro Wrestling Revolution Junior Heavyweight Championship. Super Astro defended his belt against Vaquero Fantasma and Diablo Azteca. This was a fairly quick match, with Super Astro, though, in a triple threat rules, you only need to pin or submit one of your opponents. But Super Astro Jr., because of the champion that he is, wanted to beat both of his opponents. So he ended up pinning Diablo Azteca, but also after that made the referee, he ended up applying a submission on Vaquero Fantasma and made the referee enter the submission as well. So not a fighting champion that Super Astro is, not good enough for him to beat one of his competitors. He needed to beat both of them, retaining the Junior Heavyweight Championship. After that, we get into some really fun matches. We had a special attraction match. Rocky Azúcar Romero faced off against Mysterioso. Rocky Romero, not necessarily a big fan of the San Francisco crowd. Mysterioso coming in as really a well-received and well-loved luchador. This one, Mysterioso, is the type of wrestler where he has incredible strength and speed. So he's agile but incredibly strong. And Rocky Romero is just entertaining as all hell. One of the highlights of the entire night, Mysterioso won this match by pinfall. After that, we had Jacob Fatu facing J.R. Kratos, who is your Pro Wrestling Revolution heavyweight champion. This one, again, I mean, you had the referee of choice for the Border Patrol, Sparky Ballard, in there, and that ended up influencing the match quite a few times, though Jacob Fatu, gosh, this was just an amazingly fun match. So entertaining, both big men who are really agile, strong, who have speed. The crowd were on their feet for a almost 3 count, for Jacob Fatu. I mean, it was electric in this match. But Kratos won, retaining, his championship. And then for your main event, a 3-way tag team match, you had, the team of Bestia 666 and Rey Uros versus Los Hermanos Lee, Dragon Lee, as well as Dralístico, and also announcement made just a few days before the show, Lince Dorado was able to attend, and he teamed up with Viento. And this match was all over the place. Not only just a trios match, but a tag team trios match with lucha rules. Everyone flying everywhere. The team of Los Hermanos Lee won, Dragon Lee and Dralístico won, but mad respect between all of the competitors in this match. Really great energy, great high flying really throughout the entire match. It was just something where you really had to keep moving your head all around because there was action in the ring, out the ring, and it was, I mean, it's, you just have to see that. And Pro Wrestling Revolution posted an amazing picture of that match in and of itself, both during and after the match. And it was absolutely the highlight of the entire night. So, a great event by Pro Wrestling Revolution in San Francisco. I mean, you have some of the biggest Lucha Libre stars in this world, just some of the biggest wrestlers in the world on this card. So, it's something that I always recommend people check out if they're able to. Pro Wrestling Revolution puts on such an amazing show. And where else can you say you saw the likes of Los Hermanos Lee, Jacob Fatu, Rocky Romero, Lince Dorado, and Super Astro Jr., and so much more. Pro Wrestling Revolution returns to Santa Rosa on July 30th. And they've already announced one Taya Valkyrie on their show. Keep that name in your head because that is not the last time you're going to hear her on this show, because she is all over the place.
Long-time listeners of the show will know we'll talk about her anyway. So. Yes.
As well as Pagano is going to be making his debut for Pro Wrestling Revolution on July 30th. So, make sure to check out Pro Wrestling Revolution on social media. Tickets are available. It's going to be at the Santa Rosa Veterans Memorial Center on Saturday, July 30th. And it is truly a Lucha Libre mega showcase. And if the San Francisco show is any indication of that, you're going to see big things in Santa Rosa. And that is, well, my report of Pro Wrestling Revolution for all of you. Thank you, Brendan, for this week in the news as well as the Indie Roundup. We are going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Mass, Mats, and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live is Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's Straight Out of the Bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast. One in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
A big thank you to Denise Salcedo bringing us this week's Lucha Central Central, letting you know what's happening throughout the Lucha Central Podcast Network. Up next, is the news. We're going to be rolling through what's happening in the world of Lucha Libre. We are going to be starting off with AAA. So, Dusty, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, AAA. We didn't have a whole lot of big news, but first up we have the results from the WrestleCon weekend show in Dallas. In the mixed tag match, we saw the Natural Classics, Tomei Phillip and Stevie Phillip, defeat Ryan Kidd and Christy Janes. Next up, we had a 6-man mixed tag team lumberjack strap match. Nino Hamburguesa, Microman, and Taya defeated Rey Escorpion, Mini Abismo Negro, and La Hydra. That was a big match. Microman, of course, popular as ever. Then we had the NWA World Tag Team Championship match. La Rebellion, the team of Bestia 666 and Mecha Wolf, defeated Aerostar and Drago. Then we had another trios match. Artemis, Mr. Iguana, and Octagon Jr. defeated Aries, Fabi Apache, and Abismo Negro Jr. Mr. Iguana got the pin on Abismo Negro Jr. in that match. Very cool to see him get the win. Next up, we had a trios match, no DQ match. Jack Cartwheel, Drago Kid, and Pagano defeated La Empresa. That's Sam Adonis, Puma King, and Gringo Loco for that team. Triple threat match for the AAA Cruiserweight Championship. Laredo Kid defeated Bandito and Flamita to retain. Then we had the main event, a singles match. Psycho Clown defeated Taurus. After the match, Jeff Jarrett came out. Karen Jarrett came out. La Empresa came back out, and they all attacked Psycho Clown. I'm not big on Jeff Jarrett in AAA, but...
Yeah, I'll take Jeff Jarrett if he's beating up Psycho Clown.
Yes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Okay.
Well, that's just how it is sometimes,
But, I mean, in fairness, he also has been one of the most over Rudos in AAA in recent months.
Oh, yeah. So. And as soon as he left WWE, you knew he was going to go to AAA. He loves it down there, and they love to have him. But yeah, Jeff Jarrett, he's back. Mega heel, Mega Rudo. But also coming up next weekend, Saturday, April the 30th, we have TripleMania 30, Chapter 1, being held at the Estadio de Baseball Monterrey in Monterrey. And as a refresher, here's the very exciting card. First up, we have a Marvel match, followed by the Triple Copa Mania, Copa TripleMania, there we go, which is a lumberjack strap match this year. Then we have the match I'm most excited for, Pentagon versus Ultimo Dragon in the quarterfinals for the Ruleta de la Muerta. Very exciting. Next up, we have the mixed tag team triple threat between Lady Maravilla and Latigo versus Octagon and the all-new Sexy Star, and the AEW team of Sammy Guevara and Tay Conti. There's a big AEW presence at this TripleMania, and, we'll get to that kind of a little bit later, talking about alliances. Cool thing, kind of, but interesting too. LA Park versus Viano 4 in the quarterfinal, Ruleta de la Muerta. And then we have a tag team 3-way match between Dragon Lee and Drilistico versus Johnny Superstar, and Taurus versus Laredo Kid and a Luchador Sorpresa, and it's rumored to be Alberto El Patron. Make of that what you will. I will offer no commentary. But
the 2000s called.
Yeah.
Jeff Jarrett and El Patron are the main Rudos.
Yeah, it's like 10 or 12 years ago, all over again. And next up, we have Blue Demon Jr. versus Rayo de Jalisco Jr. in the quarterfinal of the Ruleta de la Muerta. Then we have a trios match. Very interesting teams in this match. Bandito, Pagano, and Taya versus Andrade, Cybernetico, and Diana Perazzo. So we get that Taya-Diana interaction. We'll touch on that a little later in the show, too. Big things are going to come from that match, I expect. Then we have Connect versus Psycho Clown in the quarterfinal, Ruleta de la Muerta. And in the main event, a tag team match between Phoenix and Io del Vikingo and the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. A lot of big matches on that card. Big, strong night for the first of 3 TripleMania shows. Again, that's Saturday, April 30th. It's on Fight. I can't remember how much it is, and I didn't have that in my notes, but I highly recommend everybody check it out. English commentary for AAA is better than it's been in a long time. We'll see if they kind of stick with that and maintain that consistency instead of the kind of wild excitement that we got with Matt Stryker and Vampiro, but we'll see. A lot of exciting stuff for AAA right now. And again, TripleMania 30, Chapter 1, next weekend in Monterey, April the 30th. Don't miss it. Very exciting.
Cannot wait.
I know. Yeah, it's we'll get into it, but definitely a new chapter, and we'll see how things at TripleMania trickle down and out to other events, other promotions.
So AAA is still making big overtures to wanting to be big in the United States. So I think that we're going to see a lot of big things right out of this right out of the gate with this. Especially considering how easy it is for Americans to get to that particular show. So
yeah. Well, and the second night of TripleMania is going to be in Tijuana. So for people like in the San Diego area, Southern California,
even
very easy to get there. Yeah, so it's going to be,
You can literally, this is the experience a friend of mine had, and I want to do this with him sometime. You can literally just grab a taxi on the San Diego side and say, I need to go to Lucha Libre, and they'll just take you to the arena. Like that's
so
how
cool.
So
I'm jealous.
Right. Well, thank you, Dusty, for catching us up on AAA. Up next, this is a big one, AEW. Lots to talk about in AEW news.
Oh my gosh, so much AEW news. First up, Jack Evans announced on Twitter that his contract is not being renewed with AEW. In the Twitter posting, he said that he added little to the roster, that they really gained nothing by having Jack Evans, so he understood why he wasn't being picked up for an extension. It was kind of sad, honestly, like just the way he saw himself in the reality of the situation. Jack Evans, he was so good at one time, and at one time he's one of the most impressive wrestlers ever, but now you have 50 guys in AEW who can do the same stuff he can do. And after he got blown up in the ring that time with Kenny Omega, his fate was kind of sealed. The unspoken implication in all of this was that Angelico had been retained, even though Jack Evans had been let go. So disappointing for Jack Evans, but for those of us that like that Angelico style, that Yahweh style, very exciting. Excited to check that out. We'll see what happens with him, especially with the singles push. It could be interesting. They were shackled with being not only a tag team, but the Hardy family office and everything. And they admitted they weren't good at pushing stories for themselves. They were content to just do whatever. And that didn't serve them well in AEW, where you have to speak up and be kind of aggressive and inventive with your ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the story. I mean,
that's the story, and I get how it played out, but I mean, just to hear that you have Jack Evans and that nobody knew how to really do anything with him, including himself in that roster, like that tells me that something is rotten going on with the thought process there, because you have a guy who's legitimate history, a trailblazer for the style. Sure, you've got a lot of young guys that can do what he's doing, but that could have been the story right there. Have him wrestle those guys a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that was 5 seconds of thought. So,
yeah.
What the heck?
And we'll touch on this later, but they had a place where they really could have used him in a training capacity if they're going to do their own developmental. And like, who better than Jack Evans in a spot like that? Teach these young guys, this is safe, that's not safe, here's how to do that, tuck your chin when you twist. All this stuff, like Jack Evans would see it. And it's disappointing that they couldn't find a place for him in that context, if nothing else.
Yeah. I mean, to your point about just not hurting yourself. So unfortunately, Jack Evans' career has largely been marred by the fact that he's done crazy things and hurt himself.
Yeah, that's just it. He knows what the limits are. And for somebody like Darby Allin to have Jack Evans as like a producer and stunt coordinator, that would have been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Or any of the young high flying teams they've got, Private Party or the whatever Airwolf's team is calling themselves these days, and the Martins.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, keep going. We've got a lot to cover.
Yeah. It's all got a similar theme.
Yeah.
Next up, we had at Battle of the Belts, Thunder Rosa defeated Nyla Rose in a match that seemed to matter very little to anyone. AEW has a real problem building women that aren't Britt Baker, and Thunder Rosa just kind of feels like an afterthought as a champion. We were so excited and given so much reason to be behind her on her climb to the championship, but they've given us very little reason at all to care about her as champion. And then after all the racial stuff and the build with Vicky Guerrero, the Texas thing that was built into it, they have Battle of the Belts too in Texas. Vicky doesn't show up.
Yeah.
So weird.
That doesn't help either,
yes.
But
not at all. I mean, like, she should have got her comeuppance on Vicky. Like, Vicky said more than Nyla did, truly.
Yeah. Well, and that's to my point. The biggest issue with this was Nyla Rose as the first one out of the gate. Like, she's had so much stop and start too. Like, she's supposed to be the beast. She's supposed to be the monster that, like, to this day, we should be wondering why she's not still the champion. But because they can't do anything with her to make her feel important or significant, partly because of backstage reasons that I'm not going to go into, but there's other things, other choices that are going on revolving around her. That's the worst choice for your first feud for a new champion is somebody that they can't get to feel more important.
Well, and it's so formulaic. Like, everybody, aside from Nyla, has faced Nyla in their first challenge as champion.
Yeah.
Like, she's just the
It
first
feels very
boss.
formulaic, and it just it doesn't do anything for Nyla when she keeps losing these opportunities. Right. And two, when you just kind of create this, this is the first challenger, copy and paste, it doesn't make it feel unique. Unless
that becomes Nyla's gimmick, where she changes her name to being the gatekeeper, right?
Yeah.
Cause you can do things with that. You can always have that. You can have the, and maybe it's always Nyla cuts her way in line to get the first opportunity and comes up short until she wins it for real. Like, there will be the time where she does this and she'll win the title back and we'll all be shocked, but this wasn't it. And we knew it wasn't it because the build for Rosa had been so long. We knew she wasn't going to lose on her first defense no matter who it was.
They built the chase for the championship for literally a year. They built her first first contender championship match against Nyla Rose. It got 3 minutes of TV time. 3 minutes for the entire build. The entire build. 3 minutes.
So now there's a little bit, unfortunately, of chicken and egg with that, because they also are looking at the ratings, and the ratings drop when the women are on TV. So they want to still give them time.
But also then that's something that they just need to work on internally, to say how do we get people to care. I think it's because that is, again, a sign of one of their weaker attributes, is
Absolutely.
the lack of build up and storytelling in the women's division.
Well, this is why I say it's a chicken and egg thing, though, because now it becomes just a bunch of excuses all the way around. Well, ratings aren't good, so we're going to give them less time. Less time means they don't have enough time to do to get over. So now it becomes this cycle, right? Like,
exactly. And they're going to have to make the investment in the women's roster and in storytelling for the women's roster. They're able to do it. Look at some of the stories. Look what they did with Britt Baker and then Rosa and Britt Baker.
Right.
That was some of the finest storytelling AEW's ever done. It was the first St. Patrick's Day Slam. There wasn't even a championship involved. That was just like a blood feud. It was crazy and so good.
And ratings did not drop for that segment.
No, people loved it.
To counter that, I mean, I'm not trying to say that. Yeah. People absolutely loved it. So they showed that when they invest well in it, they can do it. So I don't know who's doing the women's division right now, because Kenny Omega would have been my guess, but he's on leave. So whoever they've got working with the women right now, as far as giving them story and motivating them to elevate their game, does not seem to be, well, they've never done it good top to bottom, to Miranda's point earlier,
right.
Which something we've all said. It's only been their 1%, like Britt Baker's, your Thunder Rosa's, Nyla in her first 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, they haven't done anything with the rest of that roster. And they've got such a talented women's division.
Oh, and getting more talented every day. Somebody like Penelope Ford, who's moved leaps and bounds compared to where she started, and would be a serious contender for the championship. But I don't think they'll ever give it the time or the build that it needs. Anna Jay would be a cool story. You have Ty Conti that figures into it. And, the whole thing, there's a lot of stories there that they could tell, but I just don't see them investing the time and the TV time in those stories to tell them. They have the similar problem not only with the women's roster, but with the Lucha roster. I don't want to dwell on it too long, but something I've noticed, Alex Abrahantes, I love Alex, so cool. That suit's gotta go. It just feels cheesy. It does, right? It's like, it's like a Spenguli thing or something. I mean, it doesn't feel legitimate in any way. It's like a joke. And we'll touch more on the misuse of luchadors, but I wanted to mention that. I've noticed it several times, wanted to touch on that. The suit, it's not good. It's emblematic, like, of the lack of depth within the lucha roster. It's not the actual Lucha Bros as a tag team. They don't seem to know what to do. And speaking of, we had Darby defeating Andrade in a casket match. This wasn't actually a match. It was just a series of pretty cool spots rather than a cohesive match, but that worked for me. There was a viral spot where the man in the crowd behind the Sting mask was indeed Sting. That's his favorite thing. He got to do it in AEW.
I like that they didn't mention that, even though Tony Schiavone was right there, who called it the last time I saw it.
It was just straight, and they didn't make as big of a deal out of it as you'd think. Like, they just kind of, there's Sting, there he is. And I hope this is the end of the feud for Andrade. As much as I enjoyed it, it just feels directionless at this point, and moving on to something new would be in the best interest of both Darby and Andrade. And to that effect, it was announced that the Forbidden Door had been opened, and New Japan and AEW would be doing a super show together in Chicago called The Forbidden Door on June 26th. And immediately afterwards on Twitter, Andrade teased us with a photo of him, Naito, and Rush, and mentioned that they were the original V1 Los Ingobernables. So cool. Of course, they were with CMLL then. That's what makes all this interesting. We kind of touched on this earlier. CMLL used to have enough stroke with whoever they partnered with that they could keep, like Ring of Honor, for instance, they could keep AAA workers from working with that company. But now New Japan works with AEW, AEW works with AAA, New Japan works with CMLL. I'm sure they can make sure New Japan workers and AAA workers don't interact. Maybe. But it's a sign of how far their star has fallen and how little stroke they have, because this would have never happened 5 years ago. I mean, it seems crazy, but they had that much pull that they could have made sure the AEW did not align with AAA because of the New Japan connection. And just a big sign of where CMLL is at the moment, like politically, financially, socially. And we touched on this, a lot of misuse of the luchadors in AEW, and now that AEW has bought Ring of Honor, of course Rush was tied to Ring of Honor, Naito, New Japan, Andrade's in AEW now, there is a chance we could see this trios team. But in that, we have to mention, like I said, they misuse pretty much all the luchadors. Andrade never felt like a big deal. He finally started to feel like a big deal, and he loses the casket match to Darby. Mm-hmm. Darby didn't need to win the casket match. I mean, like, it would have made Andrade look amazing to have won. And so disappointed in that choice.
It would have positioned him great. I literally walked away from the computer I was watching on in disgust seeing the end of that match. It did. First off, it was overworked. There were too many weird elements to it. But second, it didn't, like, to your point, it didn't do anything. It didn't elevate Darby in any way. It didn't really
elevate anybody. Jose maybe a little bit. When Jose took his shirt off and was ripped, I mean, we knew he was ripped. We'd seen him before, Lucha fan. But, like, the crowd, they went nuts. Jose, maybe. But only the assistant. Nobody else got over.
That wasn't the point of this match. We weren't
not at all.
They're not going to do an angle with Jose in the upper mid card or the lower main card. So, which is where this match was positioned at. Like, nothing good came out of it. We've talked about it over and over again on this show. AEW has a problem with start and stop, start and stop pushes. We were talking about that with the women's division. I mean, I alluded to it. Nyla has that problem for sure. Thunder Rosa looks like she might be in the middle of one here. I mean, it's almost worse than the WWE 3-week push because it gives you more hope.
Right. Well, we'd been conditioned towards hope. In the beginning, we got a lot of positive storyline. I mean, think about the Lucha Bros versus Young Bucks and some of those matches. I mean, like, damn, I mean, those were incredible. But that's not the Lucha booking that we see outside of the Lucha Bros in AEW. Literally everybody else is treated as an afterthought.
Fuego del Sol's, little hot runs.
Other thing. That's a good way of describing it.
Yeah, it is. Like, he'll occasionally get real hot. Somebody will beat him for big heat, and then he'll make another run up, and somebody will beat him for heat. And that's a good spot to be in. If that's the spot you're happy with, not everybody needs to be world champion. Not everybody needs to, I mean, like, think about it musically. Yeah. Not every band is going to be the Beatles.
Yeah.
And, it's just how it is. And so that's a great spot for Fuego, but Lucha at large and their use of, I mean, like,
again, we're back to Jack Evans and Angelico, right? Mm-hmm. They just, like, to just sit there and say you have no idea what to do with them is criminal. Like, even if they're going to be happy with the role that they're in, you need to be thinking, what can we do to make our product better? And you've got those two guys in particular.
Well, and I feel like this is always going to be the case now that the wrestling scene evolves and changes so quickly that AEW may feel compelled to, instead of investing time in people, just pick up the next person and see, what sticks to the wall with them. And if they don't get over quickly, they just kind of then move on to the next person. And I don't know if that it just feels like right now that's inherently the mentality because of how, things evolve and change so fast paced. But
I disagree with that as a strategy because the fans are going to get jaded to it real quick.
No, yeah, exactly. Like, that's not a sustainable strategy. I feel like that creates a lot of these pops, and these moments, but in the long term, if you just keep churning and burning through people, then you're not really creating a roster. You're just going with whoever's hot in the moment, and eventually it's going to wear out. You're not going to have anybody new and big to sign. You're going to have to really create your own talent and grow them. Or you're going to burn through people like Jack Evans where, maybe they'll circle back around, but maybe not. You've already invested time and money and already decided. And the same thing for maybe the wrestlers. Maybe when their contracts expire, if they do have an opportunity to come back, maybe they may not want to come back.
I mean, yeah, and we're already, so as I was perusing through Twitter today, and I was indulging with a rumor mill poster, so this is totally rumor stuff, but it's because this person is really good at pulling viable rumors that have that touch of believability to it. He said Jeff Hardy already wants to get out because he's tired of being, he's already been moved over to Dark and being put in, like random 10-man matches, right?
Yeah. Well, this week on Dynamite, all he got to do was come out and do the delete sign after Andrade lost.
Yeah.
And, I mean, like, how do you not have a big spot, at least an interview, something for Jeff Hardy? Like,
and he's their current shiny new toy. He was the last big gift they got. So yeah, I don't know. And it's worse for luchadors. We have not even mentioned the fact that they now own the ROH brand.
Yeah, that's where they could have used Jack Evans as a trainer. Mm-hmm. That's what I was alluding to.
Yeah.
ROH, like, he was the Malibu's most wanted guy. Like, that's all based on Jack Evans. Like, he did it first. And yeah, for real.
No, you were alluding to it, but I figured at this point we need to say it out loud.
Yeah.
They've got two products, one of which has recently had a really good reputation for treating luchadors with a tremendous amount of respect. And as we will talk about later, that necessarily isn't true either. So.
Yeah, do you want to take the...
are we going there now? We can
let's go now, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Let's do Ring of Honor. Brendan's going to bring us some Ring of Honor.
Yes.
So moving forward, until Ring of Honor starts having its own shows, we're just going to roll it in with AEW. Cause it's a Tony Khan product and it's very obvious from the stuff we had. During Dallas, we had a few lucha related matches. First off, earlier in the night, you had FTR in a title versus title match against the Briscoes. So they put the AAA tag team titles up, against the Briscoes, but we all knew. We knew what way the wind was blowing on that. It was a great match. Fantastic.
Yeah, one of the best tag team matches I've ever seen.
But then they ruined the moment by having the Young Bucks step in. Like, they could have done that whole angle on Wednesday instead. But they didn't. So, I mean, again, we're kind of showing where they're at. But, it did set up that FTR seems to be going a little more technico or face, however you want to call it on this show. They're going,
they've shed Tully as their manager, and it looks like they might be picking up Bret Hart. And big exciting face turn for FTR.
While still holding the AAA championship. So, but they're probably going to be Rudo when they go down to Mexico to defend those. So it'll be interesting to see, but I don't anticipate that we're going to have a Vicky Guerrero with them down there as a result of all of this. So interesting. But
Yeah,
absolutely,
definitely.
match of the night, and it hurt the other match that I have to, the other Lucha match tremendously, that it had to follow this Briscoes FTR match, because the crowd was exhausted by the time we got to Bandito and Gresham for unifying the ROH titles. So for those of you who don't remember, Bandito was unable to defend the title. I believe it was for COVID reasons. So they had at the ROH Final Battle, they had Gresham and Jay Lethal, I believe, wrestling for the original ROH championship. It's been so long I forgot who he wrestled against. And Gresham won that, and this was about unifying the two titles. And again, I knew going into it, I even said it on the air the week before, like, we're not going to see a Bandito win on this. Like, Bandito's too busy to be an AEW guy right now, and they're going to put that belt on somebody that's going to work AEW. So sure enough, I mean, it was a good match, but it was for me, it was brought down by two major things. I was exhausted after that FTR Briscoes match, and it was, I had predicted what was going to happen with it. And that just goes further into the treatment of the luchadors. They didn't really at any point make me feel like Bandito had I never felt like there was a real chance he was going to win in this. And, Gresham kind of controlled the action for a lot of it, which really built on that. So, again, Tony Khan now has this second product. They're not doing much with it. They don't have any pay-per-view scheduled. We still don't know what's happening with their TV. So I don't know if they're building a second roster. Maybe that's why they're not thinking about Jack Evans as a trainer for ROH, because they don't know what they're doing with the brand. If we're lucky, they'll bring him back for that. They'll be like, hey, we got some stuff for you that you can do in ROH. And, and Helico in the Pure division sounds just like a joy.
God. Yeah.
But,
yeah.
but we're not there yet. We're still, and because of the way that luchadors in particular are being handled over on AEW, I am avoiding getting myself too excited over these ideas and concepts. But we have seen, as I recall, and you can back me up on this one, we've seen Gresham now on AEW TV a few times, right?
Yes. Yeah, and he was signed as All Elite, not like Ring of Honor. He was signed All Elite.
Well, I saw the logo and I saw the announcement, but I didn't remember for sure if he'd actually been on TV. I don't have enough time in my life to watch all of this stuff, so that's what we do here, folks. We divide and conquer. Dusty gets to watch AEW. I watch a crap ton of indies and I love it.
There's no way you could watch it all. There's just too much wrestling.
Yeah, it's too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
And it's a fair point where, a lot of that AEW booking is going to trickle down to Ring of Honor, whether it is the shiny new toy syndrome or a focus again. I mean, we talked to Dusty too about the Forbidden Door, super show that's happening. There is that leniency towards strong style and Japanese wrestling. It was very apparent with Tony as soon as they started the partnership with New Japan. Even though they have attempted partnerships with, or maybe not full partnerships, but just cross promotion with the NWA, with Impact, with somewhat AAA. None of those are quite as fully invested as they are with New Japan. It feels like they are all in with New Japan more than anybody else. And they're somewhat friendly with some of these other organizations, but that focus is New Japan. And
absolutely,
that is going to be very predominant in how they book and who they book. So even though they may have a respect for Lucha Libre, and that is being very apparent with what the Lucha Bros have done in their time in AEW. But I do think that that's not a priority for the company.
No, it doesn't seem to be. But also it doesn't seem to be a priority for the company to do booking for 2/3 of their card. Like, they do really good with the upper half of AEW, but they don't do very well at all with the, and you need that hot opener. You need that undercard stuff to work, right? Without Macho Man and Steamboat at a WrestleMania, you don't have Hulk Hogan and Andre, right? Like, it just...
Yeah. Because it whips you into a frenzy for the main event.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need that to kind of get you excited and whet your appetite and get you, excited for it.
Well, more to come over the next few weeks with now Ring of Honor being part of this AEW umbrella. We will continue to talk about it as news becomes available.
Indeed.
Up next, we have Major League Wrestling, some stuff to catch up on in MLW. We're going to first talk about the news that came out. It was reported on Lucha Blog as well as the Wrestling Observer of some behind-the-stage moments, essentially an incident that happened, I believe it was the night before the Azteca Underground taping in Dallas. MLW had a show the Thursday night before the Azteca Underground taping regarding Los Parks, LA Park, as well as Hijo de LA Park and LA Park Jr. in some kind of scene gone wrong, essentially, with Hammerstone and Jacob Fatu. It was reported that Los Parks were involved in a attack with Jacob Fatu that was built to help build their program that was going to be a match at Azteca Underground the day after. There was some miscommunication of cues, apparently, to the point where Los Parks may have missed a cue and were fighting with Jacob Fatu after he had his match with Hammerstone. The action wasn't necessarily going as planned. They were trying to get the Los Parks in the back, but that wasn't necessarily happening. And they ended up attacking Hammerstone as well as Jacob Fatu. That attack ended up going off script, a little out of what was planned, very aggressively attacking both Fatu and Hammerstone. Hammerstone got a pretty nasty chair shot to the back of the head, cut open, that did require some kind of closing. I think they were able to get him good to go. But Dusty and Brendan, you guys both saw the raw footage of the attack, and I say attack because it was really a big brawl that kind of went astray. Kind of describe what that video looked like, because I have not seen the video in particular. I've just read and heard the reports. So what did it visually look like?
It kind of looked like a bar fight. I mean, like one Park brother would hold Fatu while the other one, hit him, kicked him, unprotected punches to the head and face. I mean, they really went for it. And what a couple of psychos, because two guys you don't want to pick a fight with are Fatu and Alex Hammerstone. Like, why would you? You know what I mean? Like, if you were going to pick any two guys, don't pick those two. But I digress. It was very violent and bizarre, and you could tell within seconds that it wasn't planned, that there was nothing staged or, pre-planned about it. It was, sloppier than you see in most wrestling shows, but it made it look very real. That's how you could tell it was, just the sounds that you could hear on the video that connected were insane. And it's easy to see why they have been removed based on the video.
Yeah, so if you know what to look for, you can actually see a moment where it probably goes from, using business terms, from work to shoot. You can see where it got just a little too physical, and this is a thing that the Parks are known for. They've when they were up here at Defy, they had a similar issue where they kind of really pushed that line, and some people think that makes them more entertaining. Other people think that just makes them too much. And clearly they crossed over the line and too much here. If we've had actual injuries to Hammerstone, like, you should never be doing that. And and as Dusty mentioned, you could see just raw, brutal shots that were, like, beyond real. Like, you could tell that there was violent intent going on with some of those shots. And
yeah, like a rage behind it.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's they were thinking that if they were upset about something else and they were lost in that moment, or if maybe they always work just a little too close to the edge and they just didn't find the right place to pull back this time, or what. But it was there's no question in my mind that it was absolutely the right call to remove them from the scene. In the raw footage, you can see they actually, when they start to fight to backstage, as you were talking about, Miranda, you can see a producer come out. I think it's Cord, but I didn't get a good look, trying to break them up. So, like, that makes it obvious to me.
Yeah, frantically. Yeah. You can tell from the look on his face, like, he's ready to shit himself. Like, he just can't control the situation. And nobody's that good of an actor.
Yeah. Well, and as you guys mentioned, so in result of that fight, all three of Los Parks were let go by MLW immediately afterwards. L.A. Park Sr. was set to fight against Jacob Fatu at the Azteca Underground show the next day. He was replaced by Bestia 666 in that match instead. And so that is something that will be very interesting to see how they modify in tapings or in post with that. But with the result of that fight, all three of Los Parks are out of MLW. And understandably so, when something that gets that out of hand. There was also some added way to that information about how Los Parks handled themselves afterwards, where they kind of dug their heels in to, their justifications for the fight. Possibly there may or may have not been some alluding to the fact that they didn't know English, and why that wasn't, who knows. That is just some of the information that is going around regarding what happened after the fight. And again, probably another reason too why MLW made the decision to let go of all three Parks after that incident. With that, though, we're going to pivot to this week. Well, actually, I'm going to say not this week, but last week in Major League Wrestling. Last week's show. We don't have one this week, actually, as far as I can tell. Of course, you can watch Major League Wrestling Fusion each and every week, Thursdays on MLW's YouTube channel. As of right now, I do not have or see anything for this week's rundown or show, but I will allude to last week's Major League Wrestling episode that you can see on YouTube. The opening match, we had TJP versus Matt Cross, which commentary really played up about how well these men know each other, how much each of them have traveled the world. Matt Cross hit a star press for the win. And then on the bookend side, on the main event, you had a 5-way match for the National Openweight Championship. ACH versus Puma King versus Myron Reed versus Alex Kane, with a wrestler sorpresa, a surprise wrestler that turned out to be a West Coast favorite, Juicy Finau, making his Major League Wrestling debut. Someone that I have seen quite often out here on the West Coast. A very big guy under the tutelage, as they mentioned in commentary, of Jacob Fatu himself. Someone who's a big dude, but also fairly agile for his size. This match, though, for being a 5-way, was very quick, and it was meant to do a few things. One, to put over Juicy. And I say that because shortly after this match, it was announced that Juicy was signed to Major League Wrestling. 2, it introduced a mystery character that attacked Myron Reed towards the end of the match. And 3, of course, giving Alex Kane a clean win. Puma King, unfortunately, was the person who ended up getting pinned, taking the pin on this. His show in this match was very quick. He had some really good spots with Myron Reed, but overall, it was a pretty fast-paced match. You know, people flying everywhere, a few good spots, but a very quick 5-way. So, again, not necessarily a lengthy, extensive match, if that's what you were looking for. This match, I really did think, was meant to set up a few different stories or a few different people in different ways. So I think story won out over match quality in this one. But that was last week's MLW episode. Big news, though, coming out. We talked about her earlier. Taya Valkyrie is making her return to Major League Wrestling on May 13th at Kings of Coliseum. She was last with MLW in September of 2019. And not only is she making her return, she's making it in a big way because Major League Wrestling announced that the inaugural Women's World Featherweight Champion will be crowned at Kings of Coliseum. Taya Valkyrie will face Holidead for the new championship. So on her first night back to MLW, Taya is going for some more championship gold, and could possibly walk out of Philly as the MLW Women's World Featherweight Champion.
And those two together is a banger. Like they always produce great results. I don't think they've met a lot, but the couple times I've seen, I might have just dreamed all of this up. I can't come up with an event off the top of my head, but yeah, the two together, I mean, a very physical style. You're going to see a lot of hard hitting action, and I'm there for it. I want to see that match so bad.
Yes, May 13th, and it will be part of a MLW Fusion TV taping. So even though we're going to know the results ahead of time, we will be able to see that match in full on YouTube for free. So again, it's just one of those perks about Major League Wrestling. Great overall, match quality and TV quality for free. Only 1 hour a week. Even though there's so much wrestling around, MLW really provides some digestible, bite-sized episodes each and every week. So make sure you stay tuned into the Lucha Central Weekly podcast as we continue to cover Major League Wrestling. With that, we are going to transition to This Week in Lucha Libre History. You know it, you love it, you missed it. So go ahead, Dusty, why don't you teach us a thing or two?
That's right. It's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day for This Day in Lucha Libre by Pep Carrera. He's got information, birth dates, anniversaries, matches of the day, amazing videos, and even more. And it's all about Lucha Libre. That's at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. This week we chose to highlight the career of Taya Valkyrie. She's had an incredible week this week. Besides all the other stuff we mentioned, there's some Impact stuff coming up. She had the incredible suplex, like a superplex chair spot against Athena and Prestige Wrestling. But for this week in Lucha Libre is because she defeated Ayako Hamada for the Reina's title on April the 21st, 2017. This was her second reign with the title. Taya joined AAA in November 2012 as part of the Perros del Mal faction. She very quickly rose in popularity since her debut with Perros on the indie circuit in April. By TripleMania 22 the next year, Taya defeated Fabi Apache to get her first Reina's title win, and she was Reina's champion for over 3 years. Well, almost 3 years, I guess. And she lost the title on March 19th, 2017, only to pick it up a month later at this match that, for this week in Lucha Libre, at a TV taping in Tijuana. Taya's importance in AAA cannot be overstated, and I'd argue she's the most famous international star that AAA has launched in the last 10 years. Penta is a close candidate as well. They might actually be tied, but he fits into that. There's just a special synergy between Perros Del Mal and AAA that for a very special moment in time did a lot for Penta, did a lot for Taya, but it also did a lot for Lucha as we see it today on TV. Without that Perros Del Mal faction, Lucha Underground as we know it wouldn't have happened. Mm-hmm. And it's just so important. Taya has come back to AAA twice. Currently, she's back in AAA. We mentioned before she's going to be appearing in a trios match at next week's TripleMania Chapter 1, but it sounds like a Reina's championship match isn't far away. So, Brendan, what are some of your memories of Taya in AAA?
Well, first off, this match, the match you were talking about with Hamada.
It's incredible.
It was a transcendent match for a lot of people. Like, when I wanted to get people into Lucha Libre, and they were really more entrenched in like wanting to see the kind of indie style of wrestling, I'd be like, look, they're doing it here. Look at what they're doing with these ladies. And I would show that match, and it would always get a result with somebody saying, I want to see more of this product. And, Taya's popularity is well above and beyond just being a women's division wrestler. Like, there's a lot of talk about on this show in particular, but in the like where the women's wrestling place is, and you have your Taya Valkyries and your Thunder Rosas that transcend that. She wrestled a lot of intergender matches down in AAA.
Yeah.
They are not
even in Lucha Underground too.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not afraid of them in Mexico. That's just, she worked well in those. But that's not the point I'm trying to make either. It's just that she's so good, and so it doesn't matter.
She's one of the most credible intergender wrestlers of all time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who she's in the ring with. She's going to make something amazing happen. It's going to be a good match. It could be, I always love going back to it. It could be the Invisible Man or the sex doll from Japan, and you still are going to have a good match out of Taya. So, that's always kind of the test for me, is if somebody can work with something like that doesn't give you anything and you still get a good match, Taya can. So there you go. But that's the first and foremost thing. I talked to her when she came up here for a Defy show. She's very, very rooted in her Mexican heritage, her Mexican roots. Like she, if you've ever heard the story, she went down there by herself to learn. She did crazy things like get on the subway by herself to get to and from classes, which is where she started learning to wear a Loca nickname. They decided.
Yeah, Arrow thought she was crazy. He's like, no, nobody does that.
Right?
And she did. And especially nobody that looks like Taya doesn't get bothered constantly.
Yeah.
But she did that. Like, her air is so tough that, it's just cool.
But, and so she's always proud. I wore a Perros Del Mal's shirt to that, and she pulled me out of the crowd to say she really appreciated seeing that, because that is a huge part of her personal sense of identity. So I think about that match. I think about her time with Perros when they were the hottest faction. Like those are some of the biggest, but she's not done making her legacy is the part about that's super cool. Like she's, if you look at the career of Blue Demon Jr., for example, she could easily be a figure like that in another couple of decades where she's still wrestling and still a huge draw and still that, cause what she's got is less about physicality and more about charisma. Even though she is very physical, it's that she's very charismatic about doing it. You're very invested in her matches and either her winning or not winning, depending on which side of the coin she's on. Because when she turned on Perro, she was super hated too. But that was it worked so well. It almost worked too well, because I don't know if she was going to be welcome back in Mexico for a while after that. Anyway, I could keep rambling, and I know Miranda has a lot of things to say about Taya too, so.
Well, I think it's very obvious we all are very big Taya fans for all the reasons. We just, literally all the reasons. If you have not listened to any of these episodes before, out of 96, I feel like a good, 70%, of these have some mention of Taya in one way or another. And I do think and not to say that others haven't elevated the title but I feel like when you think of Reina de Reinas champions, and the elevation of that title, it's synonymous with Taya, with having the longest reign in company history, as someone who was able to bring that over to an American audience, though it wasn't necessarily seen a whole lot in Impact. It paved the way for what they now have with Diana, and having the visibility to U.S. audiences. And I absolutely agree with how her work in AAA really helped create the mold for what Lucha Underground did, and especially intergender wrestling. She was really able to showcase that so well in Lucha Underground. Between her and Sexy Star, they were really the two who could hang with any man in the ring. And I really felt that helped establish Lucha Underground as such a different product, a different television show, but also able to highlight with her how versatile she is in the ring and truly facing anyone. I adore how much respect and admiration she has for the Mexican culture, coming in from the other side, from Canada, and really taking a chance on Lucha Libre, which not a lot of women do, because of how notoriously challenging Lucha Libre style of wrestling is. And to go there and to train on her own, I completely understand how she won the respect and admiration of her peers and the community, not only from her ethic, but just how she embraced it and how she made it her own. And even now, she's a beautiful hybrid of hardcore wrestling, lucha libre, traditional style, strong style. I mean, there's so many things about her style that are so undervalued, but she too, talk about hardcore style. One of the things that she did in Dallas was wrestle a hardcore match against Perro, at No Peace Underground, because she's used to challenges. And so I just don't think there's anything this woman can't do. I really don't think so.
I really want to come back on a point you meant, that there's more than just the difficulties of being a foreigner in the Mexican. The lucha libre culture itself is hard on people, and twice as hard on women and exoticos. You can listen to any interview and know that they are super. So to thrive in that environment the way that Taya did is extraordinary. I've talked with other wrestlers from the States who've gone down to train lucha, and it's hard. It's really hard. And the women in particular had an extra hard time because there's a culture and a mold that they want you to fit in. Taya didn't necessarily fit in that mold, but she made a spot for herself anyway. So, just to add to that level of and then to come out of that not being bitter, but instead really embracing that Mexican cultural heritage, just really, yeah.
She has her own recipe in the Eat Like a Luchador cookbook.
Indeed.
So if there's not a bigger...
a good recipe. That's my carne asada recipe now. That's the one I follow.
So, I mean, that says something. If you're that lucha enough to be featured in a Lucha Libre cookbook, which you can find at Amazon, at Mass Republic, and bookstores all over, that says something about your testament and impact in Lucha Libre culture. Well, that does it for this week in Lucha Libre history. Don't forget to check out this day in Lucha Libre history on luchacentral.com. But wait, there's more. A lot more that you can find on luchacentral.com. Brendan, can you tell our listeners what else they can find?
Yeah, so if you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, I mean, really, it's time to do it. luchacentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre all around the world. It's a place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards, seen and read by top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And we're back to it here. The kicker, the coup de grace, the final, the icing on the cake, the last, the flaming coffin, whatever you want to call it. It's free. It's free.
That's my favorite price.
Right? The best price.
Super free.
Super free. LuchaCentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Up next, we got Impact Wrestling, and guess what? It's more Taya news.
This is her week.
Because this is her week. This is legit her week. So, and maybe not exactly week, but we're just going back a little bit to the events that happened during WrestleMania weekend, specifically during Impact's Multiverse of Matches event. Deonna Purrazzo did her champ challenge at the event and ended up putting the AAA Reina de Reinas championship on the line when she faced Fabi Apache in a awesome match.
Rare appearance too.
A rare appearance by Fabi, and again the elevation of that Reina de Reinas championship. Having that defended on an Impact show against a AAA wrestler was a huge deal to have. After that match, now this was a curious thing because on top of her, being the Reina de Reinas champion, Deonna Purrazzo is still currently the Ring of Honor Women's World Champion. Now, at Supercard of Honor, Ring of Honor crowned a interim champion, as AEW loves to do, when Willow Nightingale faced Mercedes Martinez to become the interim champion. Mercedes Martinez won that match, and so she is now the Ring of Honor interim women's champion. And you have, Deonna Purrazzo, your current ROH Women's Champion. So she kind of cut a promo in the middle of the ring afterwards addressing that. But then something happened, which, to Brendan's credit, he completely 100% predicted. I didn't want to think about it. I literally, if you listen back to a few weeks ago, Brendan predicted it, and I would not let myself feel it. I wouldn't let myself feel the feelings.
I said it was the only one that was going to work for me, and guess what? It was the one that worked for me.
Yes.
So.
And that is because La Güera Loca came back home to Impact. She made her first appearance there since leaving, and confronted Deonna Purrazzo and pretty much said, don't worry about the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship. Worry about the AAA Reina de Reinas Championship. And she challenged Deonna Purrazzo for the AAA Reina de Reinas Championship for Rebellion. That is scheduled for this Saturday, April 23rd. So Taya comes home to Impact to face Deonna Purrazzo for the AAA Reina de Reinas Championship. Sold. I'm done. Do it. Shut up and take my money. All the things. All the things.
I think that that has potential to be the show stealer.
Yes. I mean, again, for Taya to come back, I keep saying home to Impact, but that, Impact was really the place that Taya helped, establish her outside of Lucha Underground as this American wrestling star, and to be able to face Diana for the belt that she never lost. I mean, it's such a great story to tell. They're going to have an amazing match. I already feel it in my bones. They're going to have a great match. And then that alludes to, what will happen at TripleMania in a few weeks. Will Taya come back to Mexico as the Reina de Reinas champion? I mean, signs point to yes, but, I'd like to think so. But too, it also, Diana's in an interesting predicament now where, the champ could be no champ at all. As, one of her highly contested belts is, at risk of being lost from Taya. And then with Ring of Honor, we know the direction they're going in with that. So it is very likely that she will also, lose that belt somewhere down the road. Granted, she would have a great match with Mercedes Martinez, but it's the walls are closing in on Diana Purrazzo, and that is someone who has really thrived and benefited from being champion. So maybe they'll extend this to be a longer feud for Diana versus Taya. I don't think that's a bad thing whatsoever, because God, they can have a hell of a good match day in and day out, but it also just feels like AAA is doing all the overtures for Taya, and to have her in kind of her rightful place as Reina de Reinas champion just seems like it's what is meant to be.
I'm already fantasy booking all of the things they could do with her as Reina de Reinas champion. Like, there's so many good matchups they can do. The women's division has really exploded down there, and there's so many interesting and cool matchups. So, I think, that she's probably not going to win on this first one, because it just like with Thunder Rosa, it's going to be a better story to have it chase. You're going to have fans get more invested. So I think, we'll have some shenanigans maybe, but, I'm there for it. I'm okay with seeing multiple matches of Diana Purrazzo and Taya. Like, please, I will buy the pay-per-view every time.
Yes. Rebellion is part of Impact Plus. It's an Impact Plus exclusive, so that is a separate fee, but it's not a full pay-per-view price, so you do get it at a discount, which maybe they will wait until a little bit later in the year for a bigger pay-per-view to do this, or maybe AAA wants to end up getting that big match itself. So I see where you're going with this, Brendan.
Right? Yeah, there's lots of ways they can do it, and all of them are good. So,
that is big Impact. We're going to be having those match results, especially the match results for Taya versus Diana Purrazzo at Rebellion this Saturday. We'll have that in the future. We are going to jump into NXT, because some things have been happening in NXT. I don't know if you know these things, but NXT 2.0 has had some events happening, some very interesting developments with Legado del Fantasma, as well as I like to call it graduation. Someone on the NXT 2.0 roster has made the official call up to SmackDown. First, we're going to get reacquainted with Legado del Fantasma. One of the more interesting things happening with WWE has been this naming edict. And what that has come about is WWE is now no longer allowing talent to use their real names. Anyone who's now coming into the WWE fold will be coming under a new WWE.
Yeah.
one of those people who was kind of under that edict was Raul Mendoza. So he has now been renamed Cruz del Toro. And that is official. It's on the NXT roster page. Commentary now refers to him. And it's just one of those things that we don't ever think about him being Raul Mendoza. He has always now been Cruz del Toro. Interesting.
I totally remember when Cruz del Toro was thrown in the back seat of that SUV.
Yeah, I guess so. That's WWE for you. They just make you, we're not going to talk about it. We're just, this is the way it's always been. Okay. So for this week in NXT though, speaking of Legado del Fantasma, Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro faced the Grizzled Young Veterans, which now they're not even calling them the Grizzled Young Veterans. They just call them Drake and Gibson. So again, name stuff I don't know anymore. But the match itself started off really hot, by Cruz del Toro flying over the top rope, landing on, Drake and Gibson, then Joaquin Wilde following, shortly afterward. This match was fast and furious. It was only about 4 minutes long, not a lot of breathing room, but it worked well. It wasn't one where there was so much action it was hard to follow. It was actually very well paced and tempoed. Legado did get the win, which was much needed after their loss last week in the gauntlet match for the NXT tag team titles. Again, for me, when it went last week for that tag team gauntlet match, another lost opportunity for Legado del Fantasma. I can't now, what is this, the fourth time that they've tried to go after tag team gold and not been close. You wonder, what does that mean for them? Will they ever get close to the tag team titles? But I also have to admit, I'm kind of obsessed with Pretty Deadly now, so I'm gonna let it go. Pretty Deadly, this is not lucha related at all, but I'm just obsessed with their look and how ridiculous they are. So I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna let NXT 2.0 take this one with Pretty Deadly. It also seems like the Diamond Mines, the Creed brothers are probably coming up next in line. But, again, there has to be some kind of point where Legado has some leverage. I'll talk about what that may look like in a minute because it may be coming in another feud that's happening. Shortly after this match, Santos Escobar actually came out with, Cruz and Wilde, because it was segueing into his match with Carmelo Hayes. Now, before this match, there was some pre-taped interviews with Santos Escobar and Carmelo Hayes. Santos Escobar pretty much making fun and mocking Carmelo Hayes for losing the North American Championship at Stand and Deliver, and pretty much telling him he's in the back of the line, where Carmelo Hayes is pretty much commending Santos, but giving him pretty much no leeway and be the one telling him he's in the back of the line. I just really think Santos's promos work has just been fantastic. He speaks so smoothly and eloquently, and really one of the luchadors who can talk. And that's a rarity in WWE. So I can understand why maybe he's been spending that time in NXT to really hone and develop his promo skills, because it's worked and he can get on the mic and talk so well. And again, that, nuance of luchadors maybe not being the best talkers. I think Santos Escobar is the exception to that rule. So I'm definitely okay with him continuing to hone that promo skill and that work, because in the case that he does graduate into, Raw or SmackDown, that's going to take him a long way. So again, fantastic promo.
I'm going to pile on a little bit with this because I was recently listening to Conan again, and they went on for about 3 to 5 minutes about why they think that he should already be on the main roster, and echoing points like that. They think he talks really well, he's got a great look, and he's got a great move set. So, it's coming from Conan, and I mean, that, you can't argue with that. Disco agreed with him. That the mileage will vary on that, but, just wanted to pile on because really he's should be the future. I'm allowing myself to be a little bit optimistic because he's not so invested in Lucha Libre, as his main focus, that he might actually make it in a WWE main roster environment.
He absolutely could, and I think the proof was in this match with Carmelo Hayes. Like, this match gave me Fight Forever vibes. They just were able to match each other's speed, intensity, agility. They just have such great chemistry. And I just want to watch them keep fighting all day. Santos was over with the crowd. And even though there was really interesting elements in this where Santos was by himself, in this match, because, after the previous match, Cruz and Wild were attacked by Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen, a tag team they've been feuding with, as well as Elektra Lopez was attacked by Fallon Henley. So all of his help were gone. So, Santos Escobar got tripped by Trick Williams, and a bit of a distraction, which is very interesting karma, I think, for Santos, knowing how involved Legado del Fantasma gets in his matches. But there was some great back and forth strikes in the ring. Again, the crowd was very much, back and forth with them and gave a lot of great energy. Santos Escobar was looking to get the win. He was really striking to get the advantage in the match. However, in the moment where he was outside of the ring, two men in some suits attacked him. And they ended up getting the back of his knee with a crowbar. And then Carmelo Hayes was able to get the win. This is part of a larger storyline that they're developing between Santos Escobar and Tony D'Angelo, which is like the mob versus the cartel. Is this really what I'm just trying to,
I'm there for it. I want to see that.
I mean, it sounds silly, but it also makes a lot of sense, where both characters are part of a family that may or may not do some nefarious means. Tony D'Angelo had a big win over Tommaso Ciampa. He is now the new Don of NXT, but Santos Escobar is the Emperor of Lucha Libre, and Legado is very much about family and legacy and tradition, which aligns a little bit with what Tony D'Angelo's doing. So is it kind of a cheap way of, getting, we got two characters that are somewhat alike?
But that's a great way to do story.
Okay, I guess.
I mean...
Yeah, it is a great way to do the story, as long as it's not super cheesy.
Right-ish.
I don't know. I'm a little hesitant, but also I'm completely on board on this.
Well, it would make more sense if Legado were a little more dominant right now, but I just see it as a good power struggle story.
And no, I think you're absolutely right about that, because again, Joaquin Wilde and Ro Mendoza did get the win, but again, they're I'm sorry. Damn it, Cruz del Toro. Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde got the win. Again, but it's like it's flip-flop, win and lose, Yeah. It's a 50-50 booking. And Santos Escobar had a great showing at Stand and Deliver, but again, and I feel like they're going to only use this momentum to put over Tony D'Angelo. So I'm here for the storyline of it, but I just am we get back into this booking pattern with Legado del Fantasma where they just kind of keep losing, and how do you end up taking them so seriously, even though they are truly your most dominant faction in NXT?
It's true. As we've established many times over, NXT 2.0 is kind of a creative mess right now. So, maybe this will be the thing that helps them turn it around.
Listen. So, in the final news of NXT, something that also happened at, as Stand and Deliver, Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai did win the NXT Women's Tag Team titles from Toxic Attraction. However, they then lost it immediately after on the next episode of NXT 2.0. So a very short reign, granted, longer than their first reign. And there was
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
But then a lot of rumors afterward about what was going to be happening with Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai. We got news shortly thereafterward that Raquel Gonzalez was being called up to SmackDown, now being renamed Raquel Rodriguez. So again, some of that name edict thing happening, but Raquel Gonzalez is no longer part of the NXT 2.0 roster, now part of SmackDown. So this is her little graduation from my segment to Dusty's segment. And I'm going to miss her. I'm going to miss talking about her in NXT.
Yeah.
Think about me. I've been wanting to talk about her, and she's not in any of my segments.
That's true. But
you have a good point.
Yes. But this is my little, the turning of the tassel. Raquel Gonzalez has now been moved up to SmackDown. I hope that we could see her in the ring. So far, no big matches or news from her outside of just her appearances on SmackDown. Very smiley, which from what I understand, she did an interview with Busted Open earlier this week in which she was told that was part of, her character change is to smile more. She was told to smile more. I know.
So there's multiple reasons why that particular feedback is awful, but I'm just gonna stick with the one where it totally misses the point of her character.
I agree. However, she does have a beautiful smile, so I'm fine with it too a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna be mad about that part.
Yes, but. But we will see. So that is the end of my NXT news for this week. And with that, as I'm handing over Raquel to Dusty as she moves on to the main roster news. So Dusty, go ahead as we finish with WWE.
Yeah, the only other real main roster news is during our break, Veer made his second appearance on Monday Night Raw. He finally showed up. They've been telling us he was coming for months now. He came. Second match in, destroyed Dominic Mysterio in a squash match, and then refused to let Dominic out of the submission hold until Dominic eventually had to be wheeled out on the stretcher. We've mentioned before, Dominic's momentum in WWE was spotty at best, and his treatment of being a big deal or somebody that was the guy was just not good. Mm-hmm. And now with this squash, it's clear that they don't see him as anybody important. I don't know what's going on there. Like, such a strong start to be so misused going forward. Strange choice, hard for us Lucha fans. We want to see Rey Mysterio and Dominic win. We want to see them be the guys. We don't want to see them getting beat up all the time. And for some reason, that's just what WWE's decided to provide us lately. And I feel like for a lot of us, it's kind of turning us off on the product. Mm-hmm. Even outside of Lucha fans, so many wrestling fans know Rey Mysterio, and nobody wants to see him lose. And Dominic's a damn giant. Nobody wants to see him lose either. So it just didn't make sense to me. Terrible take for who they wanted. I mean, they could have used local enhancement talent. It didn't have to be Dominic for the squash match.
It would have been better with local enhancement talent, to be honest, because it would have
made more sense.
It would send a very clear message instead of the muddled one they got.
Yeah, disappointing time, WWE. We've mentioned this before. Things kind of run hot and cold with WWE, but lately it's been consistently very cold. We'll see what happens. We always keep an eye on it, but not much to be excited about in WWE for Lucha fans right now.
I'm going to throw out my fantasy booking that I thought of while we were doing this because of the transition with talking about Raquel coming up. Raquel and Dominic in a kind of rebranded version of Eddie and China.
Oh my God.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, no offense to China, but Raquel is just light years ahead of China. I think in strength and ability. Like, China was just a marvel to look at, but Raquel has that physicality with talented ability that China just didn't have in the same way.
You're right. You're right.
It's so dumb, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's so dumb, it's good.
I love it.
It just came out. You're right. It's kind of dumb, but I mean, yeah, I just thought, I was like, that's too perfect.
It's dumb in the best ways.
Yeah. It's never gonna happen, folks. I mean, that's an idea that's just too amazing for SmackDown. But I can dream.
Yes, you can dream. Well, you did call, Taya coming back to Impact. So.
We've been right on the show a few times.
Yeah, there's been a few things that we've gotten right.
We have a fairly good track record.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to count this one against that total though, because that's like a total fantasy booking. It'd be fun. I just don't think that's on anybody's radar right now, including either of theirs. So.
Well. Ladies and gentlemen, we've done it. We've made it to the end of this week's episode of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to check out luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. You can also check out Lucha Central on social media at Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram, and at LuchaCentralCom on Twitter. Also check out Lucha Central's YouTube page, where you can find archives of all of our episodes, as well as the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast in Espanol, and interviews, matches, and other content you can't find anywhere else. While you're at it, go ahead and follow us on social media. Dusty, can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yeah, I am on Facebook at facebook.com/Dusty Murphy, and I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
I am 321 T-shirt guy. That's the numbers 321, and T-shirt guy is all spelled out. I am on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, and as I alluded to, I'm all over the Twitters.
And me, Miranda Morales, you can find me at the hashtag Miranda on Instagram and Facebook. No Twitter. That's just not my thing. But feel free to reach out to us about your thoughts on the show, as well as thoughts about things that we talk about, things around the news. Also, if you are an independent wrestler, promotion, fan, please reach out to us. We love to talk about independent wrestling, and you may be featured on a future edition of the Indie Roundup. If you are listening to this on your favorite podcast platform like Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, you can subscribe, rate, and review. Subscribe, and that way you get a notification each and every time a new episode of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast drops. You can leave us a 5-star rating and give us a review. Again, let us know your thoughts on the show. It feels good to be back, everyone. So make sure you stay tuned to us. A big thank you to all of you who have listened to this week and weeks before. We will be back with you soon, so make sure you stay tuned. For Brendan Barr and Dusty Murphy, I'm Miranda Morales. Thank you all, and we'll be back with you next week.